The best business idea available to you right now is probably one you've already crossed off your list because it looked like too much of a pain. Here's how most people pick what to build. They scan for the clean idea, the one you build once and watch magically grow. Light on operations, light on headaches, and they skip right past anything that smells like tedious or miserable work. Banks, regulations, support, the messy stuff without even realizing they're doing it. That instinct is quietly costing them the best opportunities on the board. I learned this in Y Combinator, and then I lived it building Doola. The harder and more off-putting the work sounds, the fewer people are willing to do it, which means less competition and a bigger prize for whoever actually does. The pain isn't just the cost of the business, the pain is the moat. Let me show you how you can spot the opportunity you've been flinching away from. Start with what actually defines your business. It's not your idea, it's not your logo, your website, or your tool stack. Those are the easy parts and everybody has them, especially in an AI world. Your business is defined by the specific, hard, tedious, annoying thing you are willing to do that your competitors won't. The cold outreach nobody wants to make. The regulatory mess no one wants to learn. The support call at 11 at night that a bigger company routes to a chatbot. Founders think of that work as the tax they pay to run the business. At your scale, that work isn't the tax, it is the business. It's the part competitors cannot copy, not because they don't know how, but because they're not willing to live it in the way you are. So when you're staring at an opportunity, and one version of it is clearly more of a grind, that's not the reason to avoid it. That actually might be the entire reason it's worth doing. Let me use a doula example. Starting doula, it was a grind. I actually used to block hours each day to manually fill out Form SS4, which is a form that you then have to manually fax to the IRS to get EINs. But the fact that we were willing to do that work for international founders meant there were bigger companies who didn't want to do it. We lived that grind, that schlep, and that ultimately became the pain point that we productized, which we then expanded to more ugly, tedious workflows like bookkeeping, like tax, all the downstream compliance. And at the end of the day, learning that state-by-state compliance that nobody else wanted to touch, it became so clear to me that that grind was the product. Now here's the part that's genuinely counterintuitive, and once you see it, you will not unsee it. When an idea sounds intimidating, you'd have to deal with banks, or compliance, or fraud, or regulation, or the IRS, or state workflows. Most people's brains quietly delete it before they even consider it. You don't even decide not to do it. You just never see it as an option because the fear does the filtering for them silently. That is the opportunity. You seriously need to rewire your brain here. Every alarming sounding requirement is a wall that keeps other founders out. The more the work scares people off, the emptier the field on the other side of it. Now, flip to the customer side. If a problem is painful enough that nobody wants to solve it, the people stuck with that problem are desperate for anyone who will. They pay more, they stay longer, they tell everybody they know with the same problem. Because you're not one option out of 10, you're the only option who showed up. So pick the harder version on purpose, not because suffering is virtuous, you should be a masochist, but because the hard version is where the customers are waiting and the competitors aren't. The work that scares competitors off is exactly what they can't follow you into. It's a wall that protects you. Specific things in Doula's world that bigger or better funded players don't want to deal with are things like non-US residents and SS4s and non-US tax filings for international founders, and that unwillingness left the field wide open. That is the kind of customer who'd been ignored everywhere else, and how they responded to finally someone serving them was, holy crap, this is incredible, I'm going to tell my friends, and over a third of Doula's acquisition comes from word of mouth today. No surprise, we're solving and serving for an underserved segment with an incredible solution. Here's the irony, most founders are already drowning in schlep, just the wrong kind. The formation, the multi-state compliance, the bookkeeping, the taxes, if that back office grind is eating the energy you should be spending on the hardest problem that's actually your edge, building the product and talking to users for your product, that's why we built Doola, the business in a box to take it off your plate. Click down below, you can schedule a free demo with our team, we're happy to take it off your plate. Now, knowing the hard work is the opportunity, but that doesn't tell you which hard problem is yours. Here's how to actually find it, and it's not by brainstorming. Stop asking, what's a good business to start? That question sends you straight back to the clean, crowded, easy-looking ideas everyone else is already looking at. Ask a different question. What do I wish someone would build for me? What's the thing in my own work that's broken, painful, that I'd happily hand money to someone to take off my hands tomorrow? That pain is signal, because you are not the only one feeling it. The annoyance you've learned to tolerate, the workaround you've duct taped together, the process you dread every single month. There are thousands of founders living with the exact same thing and quietly tolerating it too. The best ideas rarely feel like clever ideas. They feel like obvious chores nobody got around to fixing. So if you catch yourself thinking, someone should just really solve this, stop and pay attention. That one sentence is worth more than 100 brainstorming sessions. And ultimately, we were an international team starting a US company. I spent over $30,000 getting my first business off the ground, and I realized this is the pain point. We can't be the only person in the world who cobbled together solutions without knowing what to do. So again, the best opportunities show up as chores you wish someone would handle for you, not as clever ideas. This is exactly how Doola happened, and I almost didn't do it because when I was deciding whether to build it, every part sounded miserable, and that's the part I want to stress here. It sounded miserable. I almost second doubted myself, and here we are 5 years later with over 15,000 founders on 175 countries. Helping international founders get a US LLC meant dealing with the IRS, EINs that take months, banks that don't want to accept the accounts, compliance rules that change by state depending on your entity, federal regulations that change and change again the next year. I remember looking at all of it and thinking, this is boring, painful stuff nobody wants to touch. But then that is the light switch. People chasing the clean, elegant solutions were the ones who maybe were stalling, especially in the YC batch. And the reason all that work scared me off was the exact reason it was an opportunity. Everybody else was dreading it and scared of it too. Nobody was serving these founders well because nobody wanted to do the work it took to serve them. That schlep, the part I almost ran from, became the entire moat. It's why Doola could exist before anyone copied it and why it kept working after they tried, because you have an advantage, you have a head start, you have more workflows, more products, more automations, more brand. So the next time you catch yourself flinching away from an idea because it looks too much of a headache, stop. Lean in. That flinch is information. You just found the part of the market nobody's fighting for. So here's the whole thing. The work everyone avoids is where the margin lives. The scary version of an idea has the least competition, and the best opportunity you have is probably the chore you've been wishing someone else would handle. But picking the hard problem is the easy part. The founders who actually win are the ones who turn that decision into a system. The specific moves you run in the next 90 days to go from, I found the opportunity, to revenue that compounds. That is exactly what I broke down in 7 strategies every business should implement in the next 90 days. Watch that video next. It's right here.